Hi guys, thanks for having me. I'm Henry, a co-founder and also CEO of ShopBack. So we are a shopping rebate platform. That's what we started with. Now we are in 8 markets across Southeast Asia, Australia, and Taiwan. Last year we powered about 2 billion in sales. How we are changing as we grow, we're helping to users to shop smarter. That's what we call it, by helping them do comparisons and also to reward them as they shop. And also moving beyond the offline space. So that's how we are evolving as a company today. Yeah.
Yep. My name is Jeffrey from PetSnap. We basically, if one sentence describe what we do, we help everything you need to know about a company's technology and its innovation, you come to PetSnap. So we analyze all the patents data, journal paper, startup data, and provide what we call innovation intelligence to the R&D people and the innovation department. So we now have about 8,000 customers globally. And our main base is actually from China and London and Toronto. So we now have about 800 globally. We are mainly serving the B2B enterprise space.
Okay. So thank you both. So actually, one of the key questions that I think on everybody's mind is that right now as founders, right? I mean, you guys have been operating a business for a couple of years. And is this the first major issue that it's on this kind of scale that you're encountering? And what was it like for you when you realized, oh God, the market is shut down? Especially for Jeffrey in China. You're spending quite a fair bit of time in China. So how did it feel when you realized that you really got to shut down?
Sorry, there's thunder at some thunder at the place. Yes. So my experience was quite surreal because I almost faced it twice. So we started in China end of January, where the China first got the coronavirus hit by that, and end of January when it's near the Lunar New Year, then we got the news, and then we start contacting everyone, make sure everyone is safe. And then during the Chinese New Year period, we start actually forming the war room to talk about that. And then after, I think towards the end of Chinese New Year, then Chinese government officially enforced the stay-at-home lockdown. So during that few weeks, all our employees, 500 plus of them in China across 4 cities, they all have to work from home for almost more than 3 weeks. Then only they start returning back to work, returning slowly in phases as well. Because in China, I think they're really, I would say, super surveillance. So basically, you have a QR code, you can track everyone if you've been to any places, and there's a color code. If you are green color, you are allowed to go to work. And then at end of February, our employees start coming back to work, and now everyone still must wear masks. So it's a government requirement for everyone. For company, we need to provide masks to our employees, and then also every day need to take 2 body temperature taking in the morning and afternoon, and all logged into a DingTalk app. So and then I would say in general, China now in the whole of March, everyone start resuming back to more normal social life and work. But I would say the business definitely have been impacted. So a lot of customer very last minute, and they delay the contract or cancel the contract, because a lot of them, first they were impacted by China shutdown in February, and now they're impacted by Europe and US. So and then of course in March now, all our employees in Toronto, in London, in LA, including Singapore, in early March they start everyone work from home again, and now the whole of Europe and Toronto, everyone also locked down and work from home. So that is our current situation so far. Yeah.
Just now the word that you used was actually war room.
Yes. We set up a COVID-19 war room. We meet every day because this is war. We are fighting against it. So every day we meet up and we strategize. And then one thing looking back our China experience, I think we we done well is when first started in China, we have made a very key strategic decision to offer all our solution for free in China. Practically, we free all our product access that we typically charge 50K to 100K a year. So we offer it for free until end of March. And I think that really is one of the best move we have made for this coronavirus, because of that offer for free, I think we have generated a lot more. First, I think we do our part to help out wherever we can as a more social responsibility part. Secondly, I think it really helped with generating a lot of leads as well, because for our other peers in the industry, I think the business was very bad. They don't even have leads and they cannot close a deal. And thirdly, I think this is unintended, but it works very well because we have this campaign going, offering for free to everyone, and a lot of users come and request to use. It keep our team busy. It keep everyone focused on serving the customer instead of feeling like low morale, like don't know what to do, a lot of anxiety. So I think that keeping the whole morale up, keeping the whole team together, I think that was the most powerful thing that because of this campaign that we do. Yeah.
Okay. Henry, would you like to share? Because you also multi-site office, and I think your customer, especially your customer end, actually quite strongly affected in the delivery side as well, right?
Yeah, so I'll start with the countries. So we are in 8 markets. Half the markets actually are on lockdown by the government. The other half are like Singapore, right? I think short of locking down, but very, very stringent, I think, on a lot of the measures. So I think a little bit different. We don't have a centralized war room. What we do is we have localized communications that is aligned with the local GM as well as local HR and regional HR. So once a week or every day, I think they provide updates. That I think is done. Very stringent. But if there's any measures, so I think a little bit. Hello. Yeah. So then if there's any changes, they can react very quickly on a daily and weekly basis on a country level, because every country is really different. So I think that there is a slight difference. Another thing I think we also did interestingly was to conduct fire drills like 3-4 weeks ago. So we know that the situation is escalating. We know that slightly there will be lockdowns. There was one lockdown already. I think it was Malaysia, if I'm not wrong, one of the markets. Then we say, hey, let's practice lockdowns throughout all markets on like a last second basis. So we just say, hey, tomorrow is like lost con rate, and then everyone will pretend and all work from home. So I think that measure worked very well because it allows us to spot gaps early on before lockdowns actually happen. Now I would say we are almost all work from home. If you're locked down, if not locked down, 80% of people are working from home. The last 10-20% have option to come to office if they feel it's more productive. Anyway, now the human density is very, very low, right? Literally, the next human for me is like 7 meters, right? So it's like ironically pretty safe. But we do encourage 100% telecommute given the current setup. And as and when you think it makes more sense to be more productive, then you can come to the office, but you have to sign in. Yeah, and I think where we are a little bit behind from what Jeffrey has mentioned, we are still a bit in the adaptation mode. So whole of Southeast Asia and Australia and Taiwan are all, I would say, 2 months behind China. Right? So now everyone's still panicking. How then do I work from home? How then be effective? A lot of time now is spent on training the managers on how to conduct remote work effectively. How then to make sure there's regularity in day-to-day work. So that's the stage. We haven't gone to like things, very creative things like offering products for free, which I actually wrote down as somewhat interesting insight for me as well.
So I just want to follow up to that question, right? Because we wanted to find out what kind of mindset both of you have as of now, right? Is it just firefight like hell, or 60% firefight, the other 40% actually you and your team are trying to map out what are the opportunities that you can actually, if there are any, that can be gotten out of this crisis? or are you still at the firefight and then still doing the costing analysis to see whether there's enough cash runway? Take us through the mindset, because I remember back in SARS and GFC, after we get through the shock, we do the financials modeling. The next thing was, okay, how can we kill our competition already, right? Yeah. Of course, we were lucky lah. I think it depends on whether how badly your business is affected by the particular crisis.
Okay, actually, I can start first on this. So, in the last 6 weeks, we can really start to see the impact on merchants. So there are two kinds. One would be your general e-commerce, right? They have supply and logistics shop. So you see merchants, I think, cannot load content alone, right? And some of them will pull out in the interim, and then they will come back on when they can solve that. That I think is one. The other one is travel. So travel is almost mostly better, right? No one's traveling now. So I think once we saw that, the last 4 weeks were spent a lot on cost cutting measures, right? And I think what we tried to adhere to was the principle of cutting brutally, but try to cut once. So we try to deliver all the bad news, which we actually did yesterday at a mass company town hall. We shared, hey, these are the 8 to 9 things we are going to do, and this is how we're going to cut costs, and then bring it down from here to here. And hopefully from there on, it's all positive stories, right? And I think the goal is to deliver bad news at one shot and build up a positive momentum moving ahead. So that became the paradigm. There's another team that's also looking at what you all just mentioned, which is opportunities and how then do you take charge of the situation, right? Because we are dealt this hand, now it's just how we play the cards. And I think what they have is they have a list of ideas. It's all about now cutting it down to a very few. So this is not the time to spread wide, right? It's a time to focus on a few things that we believe can make a big difference. And now I think they are rapidly narrowing down the options to 2 or 3 things that they want to double down on to re-pivot and to re-change in this new, so to speak, new world that we live in. Yeah. So it's a bit of both. Last 4 weeks, a lot of on the cost side, it's all about one-off bad news and then building positive moving ahead. And now it's more continuing, I think, on the cost cutting, but these will be more minor things that are like G&A and IT that take some time. Then it's all hopefully all about positive turnarounds now. Yeah.
Yep. I will say mine was very similar to what Henry faced. In fact, I'm going to have a town hall later today to announce that, and totally the same. We accumulate all in one shot, because there's a saying, death by 1,000 cut. So we get all bad news in one shot, and then moving forward is positive. And also, the last 4 weeks we have been looking at all area, and actually I see this as opportunity as well, because I think at least for PestNet context, the last couple of years we have grown a lot, grown very fast, and I think naturally there are a lot of inefficiency in the business. And all the while since last year we have been looking at how to optimize it, but it's not easy when you already open the tab and try to close the tab. Actually, I see this is a good time for me to do it at one shot and then optimize everything, and this is the best window to go in. And at the same time, actually, in terms of market, I'm following with that free strategy. There's actually, I also use that to attack our competitors. So use that to double down and then really try to, I see that this year, I call it reshuffling the deck. So this whole COVID-19 are reshuffling the deck, and now everyone have a deck of cards. I will double down in things that we will have breakthrough, like what Henry mentioned as well. We are double down on 2-3 areas and attack our competition even more, and hopefully can increase the difference between us. Yeah.
In terms of, just follow up very quickly, because you're talking about cutting, and there's always a discussion, how deep do you cut to the bone and all that, and obviously you have figured out a certain amount, both of you. Don't need to share detail, obviously, that's sensitive, but it's based on what kind of scenario. I think a lot of people would like to know how deep and how long your projections are for this COVID recession that's happening. 6 months, 9 months, 1 year. It would be interesting to hear that.
We are betting on 12 months from today to be a new low. So whatever is the drop, then this new low will just maintain. So I don't think people will buy less or buy more. So it's just one sharp drop, and after that another 6 months to recovery. So in our minds, we are betting on a 2021 end of the Q4 to get to where we are at now in Q1. So 2 years. Yeah, so I think it's a bit pessimistic, to be honest, but I'm a firm believer in predicting the worst, and then if it gets better, you only have a happy story. Yeah.
Yes. For our case, is similar as well, kind of plan for the worst. So we are projecting based on our Q1 kind of experience. So we're projecting about 30-40% down from our original top line. And then we based on that, then we try to cut based on that 30-40% discrepancy as well. And then also make sure that even in the worst case scenario, we have cash for the next 3 to 5 years. Yep.
So Jeffrey, I'm curious about your strategy of these free services. How long did it take you to come up with it?
Oh, pretty fast. There are a lot of details. So
So it's something that you already prepared to do now.
Yes, and maybe because of the China environment, I think Chinese entrepreneurs are quite entrepreneurial. So this free strategy is not we are the first one in our industry, but it's pretty common across the board in a lot of other internet B2B SaaS company in China. So and there are a lot of details. So when we first come out with the idea until we execute it, about 1 week, we start actually launching it. So that 1 week, because we have sales team, so all the salesperson will first thing will jump and say, hey, if free, how can we close our deal, impact our pipeline? So we have to come up all the different scenarios. So yes, we free all this, but we will also give additional incentive if you can still close customer for this and this. So to cover all this. So to take about 1 week to mobilize the team to run the campaign and then do that. Yeah.
So one, I mean, I'm always curious on the implication on the staff, right? So just now when Henry mentioned the cutting back, you don't cut to the bone, but the thing is, for the staff, the morale definitely is affected when you touch the head count. But I'm sure they ask some, it's a little bit optimistic too. But how do you manage the behavior now?
Yes, maybe I can share on that first. So, so prior to this announcement or this leading up to this event, I call it we are slowly building up to that. So in our town hall, we have a weekly town hall meeting, share with everyone since this outbreak happened in 1st February. So every town hall meeting, I would drip feed like, hey, this is really bad, the economy, because a lot of them, I would say at least for our case, a lot of our employees are millennial that do not understand what does recession mean to them, because they've been growing in has been a good era. So have to slowly educate them what does it mean when the economy is not good, what does it mean to our business. And then I think with all the news as well, I think I will say in general people are expecting it to happen as well. Sort of there is some expectation to that. And then in terms of what we do when we cut, do some we call it rationalization. Actually we also try to scope it within those employees that is lower bottom performers. So those are already on PIP or going to be on PIP. So we try to minimize the impact by really choosing employees that maybe not perform so well. So all these and other factors, I have to talk to every one leader, not just my VP, but even actual leader to get a sense how they assess their team. It's like at the same time, we are doing a full review again, full audit on every employee performance. So to get a full picture and then discuss with my HR, with my leader, then come out the finalists and we go through it multiple times before we make this decision, because this impact everyone. So we want to make sure we really consider everything. And also, for example, in London there is this scheme that fund if you put an employee on furlough, that means you put them have them to stop working. UK government will fund up to £2,500 per employee per month, up to 3 months as of now. So instead of putting them on exit straight away, so we use couple with government scheme to sort of dampen the effect of this. Yeah.
I think very similar, right? For many of us, myself included, right? I've never been through a recession. So actually, the first year I was an intern was 2009. So it was just out of the recession. So didn't really get to see it firsthand. So I think it's also about being very candid to everyone. I think that's one. The other thing we do is that every town, the last 3 towns, we spend quite a bit of time to give everyone like a macroeconomics lesson, like on what's happening in the US, what's happening, how this thing went downstream here. So you can really see the shocks coming down. And actually all these things started way from the WeWork days. So from the WeWork lessons, we can start to see startups going bankrupt, people unable to fundraise if you don't have positive economics. Now with this, it's even worse, right? So it's like a continuation. So I think a big part of it is actually education, going from big picture to nation, economy to nation, to daily lives, to companies, and then people losing jobs, people lose jobs, people spend less, and this thing happen a few times, then you get a recession. So I think explaining things in very simple terms is really helpful to justify is wrong to use, but like to rationalize why certain actions. Like another action that we took was that we cut all bonuses as well as salary increases for everyone in management team, and this is including local country managers, right? And we took it first so that, hey, you know what, we want to make sure that we think of our team first, and we will do everything we can to prevent job cuts. Not to say job cuts won't happen, but this is the last resort. So we're going to cut everything else except for this. And I think, if we give everyone the bigger picture, the bigger story, it helps you to help people to understand why certain decisions are made. And I think that is something that I feel is important that all of us as entrepreneurs do for our team. And the second thing is, I think, is to hear the narrative straight from the founders or the management. So then there's only one singular source of truth or perspective. If not, then what will happen is that they read something on Facebook, then they start to panic. And that's where the narrative is lost, and you no longer have control. So I think 2 things. One is advice, and the second thing is consistent point of or source of information.
Yeah, I just want to add on that. Totally agree. I think what I call it over communicate. So we have to over communicate and with full transparency, let them know what we are dealing with full transparency and honesty. I think they will understand. And also controlling the narrative is very key, especially for startup. The exact same message come from a founder and come from even a senior management team member is very different. So that's why, like, I look just okay at my last night calendar. So I start at 6 p.m. I have meeting until 2 a.m. Every half an hour, I have one-on-one with all the leader, explain myself, the rationale, all these things to get them understand and on board. I think this is key. From the founder themselves is key. Yeah.
So let me just pick up from one of the Q&A question from an attendee. How do you communicate with your investors?
I will take this first. So yes, definitely we also I give them update as well. I will say could have been more update, but because I was so tied up with all this, but I do give them update, a heads up, what I'm doing, the potential revenue impact, and then also what we are looking at in terms of cost cutting. So give them a high level picture and then share with them some of the things we are doing, like key strategy, for example, the free strategy, some of things that working. So I think this is have been sort of communicating with them in once every 1-2 weeks. So let them know that at least we actually dealing with it and having a strategy for it. That is my part. Yeah.
Well, not so sexy. All our investors, we try to talk to them on WhatsApp, so easier to clarify, and just share very broad. I think what they want to know is business impact. So how much, for example, commercials have dropped. And the second thing is same point, right? Is what are you doing? And I think it's just keeping it updated once you have made a decision. Yeah, and I think the other thing we have also started to do is to reach out to certain investors for help when we think that they are good at certain elements. So whether some investors have been through recessions before, and just this morning I was talking to a new potential investor, not even a current investor, on how they should think about reacting, right? And I think one thing that struck me was I realized the mature companies act very fast. So you look at all the airlines and the banks, right? They fire the staff very, very quick. They drop all the costs down to minimal in a very short span of time. But if you look at all the startups, right? No startup has done it yet. All the startups are padded by venture money, so we have a lot more liquidity, right? And sometimes I think the startups are not as firm, or rather the management, I mean, like myself, right? We're all new to this, right? And we are not as decisive. I think that would be the other counter argument. So I think a lot of it is also just finding people who have much more experience to give a perspective, then taking a decision from there, then proactively communicating that decision with the investor and to your company. Yeah.
Now, actually, from the investor's head, I would just like to add for the audience that actually we really do appreciate over communication from the founders also. So very few investors actually have an attitude of blame or try to get pissed off or anything like that. Most investors are very rational, and actually what we want to know is just, okay, so what's the impact, like Henry says, and then what's the plan, right? What are you doing about it? What's your revised projections? And if there is value add we can give, we are actually more than happy to give, right? In terms of like cost cutting, right? Whether it's the right amount, not right amount. And of course, you have to listen to the investor and know where he or she is coming from, and then see whether it fits your circumstance, right? But definitely over communication is very appreciated. Actually, on the same topic, there's a question that I think Meta asked on the chat. She was saying that because today the two founders actually are running pretty big companies already, right? How about if you are a startup now that doesn't have that kind of liquidity? Maybe you are more than halfway through your last round, and is there any sharing that you will want to say to to founders who are in that kind of situation right now?
Really?
I think if you have less than 12 months runway, right, and I will caveat two things. You should definitely not use your old top line estimates or your current BP as your inbound revenue. Unless you're in some special sector like mass production or something that has to do with the current situation, you should almost certainly predict for revenue shocks. And with revenue shocks in place, your runway less than 12 months, I think you should consider very severe cost cutting. And without mincing words, I would say that you should consider cutting down on staff. I think that's definitely one, in order to survive. Because I think the next 3-6 months, almost impossible to fundraise. In my own perspective, I think investors will all watch and wait. And if you don't make the decision early, by the time you need to make a call, you don't have enough time. Yeah, that is if you have a much shorter runway and better to face the hard decisions now. In the last, I think 6 weeks, I have had almost 10 calls, I think, with earlier stage startups where they were faced in very similar situations, and sad to say that half of them did not make it. Yeah, and there will surely be more. Right, so this is definitely a time to make the difficult decision early on.
Yeah, I agree. If it's less than 12-month cash, should cut it severely, and I will have to act decisively. Have to act as soon as possible. There is no time to waste. I will have to act decisively.
Yeah. So I also want to add, because I do agree with Henry a bit that sometimes because we've gone through 10 years of boom, right? And I actually have met founders who still in this, as of yesterday, still have not cut headcount even though revenue has dropped 80%. So I don't know what they are waiting for, honestly, right? Sometimes you have to conserve your cash, and so that you can live to fight another day. And I think if you listen to the timelines, everyone is saying we are looking at best early next year, then the economy starts to come back in any meaningful way. And that's if we are lucky, right? Yeah, if we are not lucky, whoa, then I think Jeff is talking about 3 to 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Just a bit on the administrative part to all the attendees. if you could put the questions under the Q&A, which is at the bottom of the screen. If you don't see at the bottom of your screen, click on the more to get the Q&A, because the chat will be difficult to track. And under the Q&A, you can also see the questions posted by other people. You can actually vote it up if you really want to hear that. I want to go back on the question on how you're feeling about this whole thing, right? How is it impacting you personally?
Yeah.
Because one of the key thing about founders is you are the problem. You are the person who solve all the problem. The bucket stops with you. And unfortunately, chances are investor now will just be, if you have a good investor, they will look at you and smile at you and try to sort things out with you and have that half an hour conversation. But the work still got to be done by you. So how are you doing and how are you feeling?
Yeah, maybe I can take this first. Maybe I think like what Henry mentioned, I think maybe because of we have a big operation in China, we went through, I think every one of us went through that stage of self-denial, acceptance, grief, and then slowly come back to problem solving. I think because of our China exposure, I think we got it there pretty quick. And now that's why looking at all this, how is problem solving and opportunity. Personally wise, it actually, I would say, it works better for me now personally, because for some of you who don't know, last few years I've been traveling every week to London, to US, to China, and because of the COVID-19, I'm grounded in one place, and it made me actually have better time to think through stuff. And in fact, I'm more busy, so I'm really jumping from meeting to meeting, like back to back. While in the past, actually a lot of time wasting on the road. Actually, I find that it gave me personal, more stable in a sense in one place, can think better. But actually, my workload is even more, and it definitely is big stress, because everything is hinged on the founder to make the right decision. But my confidence and faith is on the team. So throughout this whole experience, not just myself, I'm working with my team closely, consult with them, get their input, and discuss together. And also quite comforting to see the team really come together closer during this time actually. So that is also a good thing, because everyone have a common enemy, and then we face it together. So overall, I would say I see it as this is another experience of running a startup. Yeah.
Excellent.
I think for myself, 2 points very similar, right? One is actually spent the last, I don't know, 2-3 years flying every week. Now for the last 6 weeks, no travels, right? So that was a big change. So I think the struggle actually is communicating with the teams that are abroad. At least for myself, I never always felt that video con is the best, but it's very best for what we have now. But once we got over that, I think the other thing that's really very comforting, even in these tough times, is that there's a very clear focus. Right, the focus is survival, and then after that, thrive. Right, and also not alone on this journey, right? Other co-founders, other people in the management team that are also helping to hold the fort together. And this one I found very comforting for myself was that half my management team have gone through this before, right? So this is not their first time, right? And I think they were able to share, I think, measures they took the last time. Some was like startups that like 4 or 5 years ago faced liquidity problems, and they made very difficult calls very fast. Actually, today they are all unicorns. So that was actually very interesting to hear. And they were all early employees in that company, so they were able to share the details very intimately. And then from there, we can reference and learn, even from within the company, to help the problem solve. So definitely stressful, but I think to some extent also is about being calm and just taking on the realities are very different from the past, and no point crying was more so just to be rational, and then to Jeffrey's point, right, to be decisive, make the call, and then move on. Yeah, and if it's a difficult call, I think seek one or two consultations, then make a move. I think one thing we could have done better was to act faster. So we took about 4 or 5 weeks to nail down the cost-cutting plan. It could have been done in about 2-3 weeks, if I were to be a bit rigorous on it from the get-go. Yeah, but overall, not too bad.
So there's actually one question on our Q&A that is asked. One of the attendees actually asked is, do you see deal terms materially changing now and in the next 6 to 9 months? Multiple liquidation preferences, valuation stresses, etc. Are you sensing this from your existing investors or from your experience as a fundraiser? What's your take on this?
Yeah, maybe I take this first. Definitely, yes. If I were if I were investor, I will do the same thing. So I think the market start getting a bit much more rationalized. And as an investor, I will take a more cautious stand. I will talk to you. I will want to learn more, but I don't think I will wait and see. I think all investors will have the same approach. So I think I would say the best time definitely is over. I think we have to make the assumption that the best time is gone. Moving forward, it will only be not as good, if not worse. So I think we have to be realistic on the valuation expectation, on many other aspects of it as well. Yeah.
Same. I think what could differ is the deal terms for different stages might be a little bit different depending on the stage. So I think early stage probably not much difference. But if it is mid-stage, later stages, I think we will be a lot more selective, especially on profitability, for sure. I think the good news also is that because a lot of startups won't make it, actually investors have very much fewer options. So it could lead to a very interesting supply-demand problem also. Primarily, I think one thing that investor as a company should care less is actually valuation. There are many other things like liquidation preference control that can really kill you much more than valuation can. Valuation, I think, is just a number. Right on the day, it's about ownership, control. These things are so much more important. I think. But for sure, I think dynamics have changed and it'll be much harder to raise.
Yeah, I totally agree. Actually, to me, I call it in every term sheet, there is economic right and there is control right. All the liquidation preference valuation is just about how much, who make how much money. But the more important to me personally, and I will say 10 out of 10 times, I will trade control to valuation, to price. So that is one to concur to that. And sorry, my little girl.
So cute.
And the second point I want to add is from at least the investor I've spoken to, at least on group fund or big private equity, I know there are still a lot of dry powder. They still have a lot of money. Everyone still have raised an LP. They have raised a lot of money from the LP. So I think we just have to hang tight, get through this year, and still show, even under tough time, we can still show that we have growth, we are tight, we run very lean. Investor will still invest you money, just maybe later down the road, not now, not later this year. Yeah.
I just want to add, as an early stage investor, right? So generally speaking, I think there's definitely a bit of wait and see going on already. But I believe early stage investing will probably still carry on. Maybe valuations plus minus a little bit more on the minus side, right? But I think the bigger picture to look at, and someone mentioned in the chat just now, is that there is a re-rating going on. So we will have to wait for the public markets dust to settle to see how the risk appetite of the global investors are, right? Is it now we care about profit the most and therefore we give higher PE ratios or maybe even lower PE ratios, but at least people are willing to invest in the Facebooks, the Tencents, the really profitable companies, right? Or is it a case of no, there's still a lot of appetite for fast growth, but maybe it's no longer 12-time multiple, it's now 9-time multiple. I think that one you have to wait and play out, right? You can see it happening in Uber. The big loss-making ones are the ones that have huge variance. The profitable ones actually are still reasonably stable, right? They more or less just re-rate for the drop in GDP. Right? So something to take a look at, but unfortunately it will take time. So yeah, it's definitely not going to resolve itself in 6 months.
Okay, we have one question that has been waiting for quite a while on the Facebook side. And then we also have one question that it's more on the operation side, on the B2B operation side, right? So first question is from Elric is, what did the various companies do in normal times that made you able to take the current action to exploit the current situation? So I think it's very similar to the question I asked just now. Were you ready to give the free trials even during normal days? And that's why you could implement it so fast and implement the details. And the other question, similarly on the operations side, on B2B side, is how to generate customers for an enterprise product in the time of lockdown and social distancing. Apparently MOM is going around checking offices too.
Yep, let me maybe answer that. Yes, actually for maybe to share a bit how PestNet we do our go-to-market, we have actually inside sales team across the world. So all our salesperson are actually staying in the office and then call our customer, do a web demo, and then they close the deal. So actually our sales still continue, none of them being headset. Yes, actually for hello. Yep. Yes. So that is how we do. So actually, in terms of sales, everyone can still continue the sales from when they work from home. But definitely, the interest of the customer or the reception of customer with a lot of anxiety, now you call them up, cold call them will be harder. So that is my answer to that.
I think for us it's slightly different, right? Because this is probably the second or third week of lockdown. A lot of our merchants are still reeling in from the change, so it's a little bit less. It's a bit earlier in the timeline compared to PetSnap. PetSnap I think is already 2 months in, right? So people kind of accepted and realized that this is the new norm. So I don't think I'll be able to comment much on this. I can say though that for new sales it's tough, but for current sales, your current accounts, actually you already have a contact, so it's actually not that different. It's all about adjusting the budgets. But for new accounts, I think some industries are in dire need, like F&B, so they will be very open to having chats. But if there's a national lockdown, then the whole sector will also shut. So it's very sector dependent and country dependent.
Okay, there's one question that's actually going back to the cost cutting just now, right? So the order of magnitude, how much do you cut? 35, 50, 85?
For our case, I would say closer to 30 to 40%. That is for our case.
Similar, 30-40% also for us.
So this adjustment is from your revised modeling, right?
This is from from Jan-Feb to March, the drop is about 30%, and then April I think we are carrying to cut. It should be about 30-40 from projected from the original BP.
Yep, same for me. This 30-40% compared to our this year original budgeted plan.
So I got the same question for the two of you, right? The founders. What are your consideration to choose 35 or 40%? How do you model your revenue drop, your cost, and how you extend your runway for how many months? What are the considerations for you to choose your percentage?
I can go first. I never choose a percent. So what we did was we take headcount, throw aside, management take a cut. Everything else we just build from zero up. So we assume you start a new company, and then ask yourself why you need this service, what can be renegotiated. And then from there you build it up. And the other bucket that we have, because we are B2C, so there's marketing. We introduce caps in each market if we are a bit unsure. And what we're doing is we reduce the payback period. Then at least we have an interim measure for April, and then we can watch and wait, and then before we start for May and June. So it just so happened that when we did it this way, the overall drop is about 30 to 40%. But we really broke it down to headcount, G&A, marketing, IT, and then everything except headcount, we built from zero up.
Yeah. Similar for us. So we look at different market. So we first look at China market. Our China market have its own P&L, and based on what will be impacted, and then we work towards that impacted goal. And then same for US and Europe. Also based on that market, what we expect we can do with some assumption, of course, and then from that assumption, we work backward and see what kind of cost cutting, what is the target for the cost cutting, then we go from there.
Okay. Thanks both of you. Really, it's actually a very insightful sharing. And just one last question that we see on the Q&A. So for the attendees, if you have any questions, you can quickly put in. Otherwise, I only have one last question. This question is, what are the top 3 long-term implications that you think will be on the startups in our ecosystem in Singapore? So while you're thinking about this question, I thought to just blow a little bit of a trumpet for my Serena and Shirley. The 2 of them, we actually came up with the idea just yesterday to have a COVID-19 resource section on AngelCentral. The 2 of them worked really fast and really hard, and now it's already launched on the front page of AngelCentral. So basically, it's a section where we pull together the government support or the content that we have in-house, or even the Southeast Asia talent listing that we have. So basically, it's whatever resources that we think will be relevant to the startups in Southeast Asia that we want to be the spot that you can actually come to find it from. So if you just go to AngelCentral's front page, you can see that list. And if you have anything that you can add to it, please let us know so we can actually update our list all the time. Okay, so maybe you can hear from Jeff or Henry on what you think the implications on the startup in the ecosystem.
Yeah, maybe I will take that first. I would say not just startup in Singapore or in general. I think I look at even wider. A few things I would say, maybe most of you maybe will agree to that. I think working from home will be a new norm. I think the way of how we work, how we treat work, I think that will be a new norm. So in the past, actually, just last night I was discussing with our senior leadership team, like in the past, we actually strictly do not allow work from home because we believe that people come together, spend time together, build a chemistry is very important. But actually now that with this, actually we are revising this and how we start thinking about post-COVID-19, how we are working towards that, because we also have a few office lease ending this year, and London rental is not cheap, $1-2 million a year. So how we can actually start planning for that, and be prepared for a new future, a new norm after COVID-19. Because this thing will pass, and what do we do with that? I think that is what we are start thinking about that. And in terms of startups, I will say for startup context is really still, it's not even startup. I think maybe if I will look at it, is the basic of going back to basic 101. As a business, we need to learn to make money, to generate profit. End of the day, as a for-profit organization, we need to make sure what we do, we create enough value and generate profit. I think the way of burning money and the way of what I call the champagne time, I think is definitely over. We have to be really lean. We have every single cent we spend, how we look at operation, how we look at customer acquisition costs, all this, I think it just makes us to go back to basic, in my opinion, and we have to treat the basic right. I think that will be some of my takes. Yeah.
100% agree on the making money part. I think if it's not positive unit economics and cannot be profitable in a 1 to 3 year time span, I think a lot of investors will never dare to back it. Unless, of course, is a game or groundbreaking idea that's revolutionary. So I think that's one point. Second thing, I think a slightly different opinion on the work from home thing. I definitely same as Jeff, right? I think we have a no work from home policy prior to COVID. COVID, we realized that it is actually functional. Yeah, is it the best? I don't think so. But it definitely showed that it could work, right? And there are some things that I think we are starting to realize that, hey, maybe it is possible for maybe some setups and not possible for others. And how then do we make it more efficient? Because I actually think COVID will last for some time. It's not going to be something that's like 3-6 months just work from home. It could be sporadic on-offs. And I guess for us specifically, we are being more open-minded about it. Still doubtful about its effectiveness, but open-minded for sure. I think one thing that will surely happen to all startups post this, not just in Singapore, but whole of Southeast Asia, is people are now raised for much longer runways. I think the past people raised were like 12 months, 18 months, but post this, people will be raising 24 to 36 even, right? Because what you want is to make sure that you're not at the end of funding. You're running out of runway, and then you're caught off guard by a macro shock, which I think is happening to a lot of companies now. So I think people will learn and just face more, even when it comes at higher cost.
Yep. Yeah, I remember me and Henry was just talking about this couple months back about this fundraising, and I think tie into one of the questions I see for a company that's currently profitable, already frozen hiring, revised spending, and should we take the action of cutting headcount? I will tie this together, that I think we still prepare for the worst, and in terms of fundraising, this couple months when me and Henry talking about that we raise money when we don't need it. When you raise money when you need it, that is the worst position you can be. So I think, and with that, actually with that question as well, I think we should, I will still say prepare for the worst for that, so that we are not in a reactive position.
I do want to just add on a little bit because I think it's been a bit bleak, and listening to Jeff and Henry, obviously it's very tough times, but they are shouldering it, leading the company very well. But I just want to remind everyone that actually economies do go in cycles, and this is not the first and last big bear market and depression we will go through in our lifetimes, especially if you're in your 30s or even 40s. Actually, I disagree on a lot of on the small stuff in terms of what really has changed. I suspect humans don't change very much. That's a thesis I have. People will always want to win other people. There will be people who always want to get very rich. There will be people that always wants to socialize. So then the question is how we move our businesses to fulfill the different needs. And I think the people that react well in crises usually are the ones that will do and build really big businesses as the bull comes back. And the bull always comes back. It's just how long it takes. You can go do the research and read out a bit more.
I'm very encouraged from the two founders to talk about new opportunities that have come up and how do you come out from this recession stronger and better versus your competitors, right? So maybe you can have a conversation with us on what do you think are the opportunities now that you can take advantage of to come out better?
I think this question is better revisited in 6 months' time. Now also putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, I agree.
But actually, if I could add to that, it's short of naming specifics, right? We see as a great time to fortify position, because actually your competition cannot fight as hard, especially if you have liquidity to run. Yeah, but that's just money and capital, right? So the actual steps, I think we are still in the midst of finalizing. And I think the only difference between now and maybe the past is that in the past, maybe you can fire 5 shots. Now maybe you only can fire 2. Then there are 2 or 3 that you choose to focus on, or that we choose to focus on. We better be very clear. Yeah, because now you have a lot less resources to do what you want to do.
Yeah, totally same with Henry. I think we will only really tell 6 months, 12 months later, but exactly the same. I think fortunately, both Henry and I have in a very fortunate position. We have slightly more liquidity. I think using this opportunity to fortify our position and fire more focus shot. I totally concur to that.
Yeah, but I just want to tell you guys, really hang in there, because I went through a two bad recession, right? Xiaoning and I, and think more definitely, SARS and GFC. Actually, there are silver linings. For example, the war for talent will disappear more or less. It will not be a big deal anymore. The pressure to forever raise costs will disappear. So it does require quite a big mindset shift, which I think you guys alluded to. It's linked to being profitable, right? Yeah, so it's not all bleak, just have to hang in there.
I think from my personal point of view, this is actually that's my little imp who's next to me now. For me personally, it's what I always try to remind startups. Startups are not a special breed of entities. Startups are businesses. So it's very important that you drive for profitability, drive for cash flow, drive for liquidity. You cannot bank on investors for that donation or cash flow drive all the time. That would be a very unhealthy mindset. And I think it takes a situation like this for us to remember the fundamentals of business is to sell, is to manage your cash flow. So with that, actually, I realized the last question seems to be more directed at investors. So I'm thinking whether Digmo or Dashi wants to take this one. How is the dynamic in early stage fundraising in Singapore right now? Do you see interesting deals coming or even closing?
Okay, so I just tell my personal view. I see the deals have not actually come down a lot, especially the early stages. I think the founders still don't realize the situation yet. So I still see the same valuation, high valuation. I want to tell you our conversation with VCs now. Actually, I've only seen one new term sheet in the last 3 to 4 weeks. And the term sheets that came up was 30% discounted over valuation, and the total amount of investment is halved. So I sense is that most of the investors are much more careful now, and they feel that they cannot support the valuation. And when I ask them, why do they reduce the valuation? Are you trying to take advantage of this situation? Their rationale actually makes sense for me. They think that their valuation is pegged on what they're likely to achieve over the next 12 or 24 months. And if this current situation, if the startup cannot deliver the kind of KPI that can raise the next round, then they cannot support the current valuation, right? The other thing, my view is most VCs are also keeping their dry powder to support their portfolio companies. So I think the term sheets will come very slowly, and I think VCs that are well funded are trying to be careful. I think they're watching to see what's going to happen over time. That's my view.
Yeah, totally agree with Digmo. I think just the only other thing to add is you have to look at the public markets to where the answers are. Because the public markets are the exits in the form of IPOs. The public market guys are the ones that are doing the big trade sales of your bigger companies, right? So if these two are not coming, and they are actually in pretty bad shape right now, right? So then definitely it will cascade down the entire VC chain, right, all the way to angel investors. So it's back to what Henry and Jeff said, right? I think the thinking should be that, hey, we should go build something that gets to profits fast. Because once you're profitable, you are actually not beholden to any of these fundraising schedules, which is how I think 80-90% of all the SMEs run anyway, right? So something to think about. Pre-2010, actually, the entire ecosystem was just made up of companies that are profitable, right? So go figure.
Okay, so maybe let me make an additional comment on this. If you are a founder and you're trying to fundraise now, and it's very difficult, you cannot fundraise, then come back down to how much you can fundraise among your 3F round, and then slowly build your business, because there's a lot of talent which is available in the market at cheaper prices now as well. So just go slower, right? And use your whatever fund that you can support the company and get going, right? My sense is the equity market got still much more round to come down. So I was just having this conversation, right? The S&P is down 25% versus the top top value to now 25%. But you look at the 20,000 and 2007 down round. 2000 the round was down 48%. 2007 the round was up 58%. And do you think that this one will be better than that one? So my sense is we need to ride out this roller coaster. It won't stop now.
So, thanks, Teck Mo. Thanks, Sheng. So I think with that, we are almost on the dot for the time. We are supposed to wrap up at 5 o'clock. We're at 5:05 now. So thanks, Henry. Thanks, Jeffrey. Like you said, even though you're not flying now, actually it's a much busier time for you. And it's definitely it's a different kind of stress. And it's definitely a lot more stressful because literally for some of the termination conditions, it's actually very, very tricky. So thanks a lot for your time and spending time with us. When the COVID less than 10 thing lift, let's go for dinner. That one I owe you guys. And for the attendees, please share your feedback with us. Either you can, I think Serena has prepared a survey to ask for your feedback on how you find this session, and also what kind of content would you like us to talk about coming up, be it investor related or startup related. Please let us know your thoughts so that we can, within our network, within our resources, we can find something to help you guys. And also Sheng, Teck Mo and myself, we are sticking our neck out a little bit. We thought that during this difficult period, if you need to talk about anything, please just let us know. So under the COVID-19 section, we have our calendar up there, but we do ask you to share a little bit. It will be confidential, but do share with us the background a little so that when we are chatting with you, we know how to address the issue. Okay, so with that, thank you everybody. Thanks for spending 1 hour with us. And thanks Jeff, and thanks Henry again.
Thanks Ao Ning and AngelCentral for organizing this. Yeah, bye-bye.
Thanks, take care everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Good luck to all of us.